So it's been a rough flu season. Here's how it played out in my house. I was sick with the flu and it took me 2, maybe 3 weeks to feel like myself again. In the meantime, my 12-year-old got sick, was super miserable for 3 days, high fever, totally flat out, but by day 4, he was up and skiing again. Same house, same virus, totally different recovery story. If you experience that, you are not imagining it, and honestly, it's frustrating. But there are real reasons for why this is happening, and there are also real solutions. That's the good news. So in this video, I'm going to break down exactly why recovery from flu, colds, or COVID is so much harder in midlife, especially for women. And if you stick with me throughout the video, I'll be sharing several simple, practical strategies to help you recover faster. And I'll explain why these strategies matter, because understanding the why is what actually helps us follow through. And if this already resonates, go ahead and give this video a gentle thumbs up. It really helps more women find this information. Let's dive in. So what's actually going on? Why does it take so much longer in midlife to recover from a flu or a cold, while kids usually bounce back so much faster? Here is the thing. In midlife, our immune and inflammatory on-off switch becomes a little sticky. I don't mean that anything is broken, but it just doesn't flip as cleanly or as quickly as it used to. The first reason has to do with hormonal changes, specifically estrogen, which shifts significantly in midlife. Estrogen doesn't just affect reproduction. It also plays a really important role in regulating our immune activity and inflammation. And as estrogen begins to decline as early as in our 30s and drops more noticeably in our 40s and 50s, we lose some of its natural anti-inflammatory and immune supportive effects. The second reason is closely connected, and it has to do with stress hormones, especially cortisol. You see, estrogen has stress buffering effects, and as it declines, cortisol tends to stay elevated longer, especially in women who are already juggling a lot. Cortisol does help us push through responsibilities and get things done in the short term, but when cortisol stays high, it interferes with immune timing. It slows immune cells activation and keeps inflammation elevated, which makes recovery longer and more exhausting. The third reason is energy availability. Fighting a virus and getting your immune system fully online takes a huge amount of energy. Your body has to pull energy away from everyday tasks and redirect it toward healing. In midlife, that shift doesn't happen as quickly anymore because your energy reserves are often already lower due to hormones, stress, and just life demands. And because metabolism becomes less responsive with age, that redirection of energy from day-to-day functioning to healing also doesn't happen as quickly. So recovery just takes longer than it used to. The fourth reason is closely connected to energy availability, and that's lack of quality sleep. Sleep is already more fragile in midlife due to hormonal shifts. You can probably relate. And when we're sick, sleep often becomes even more disrupted. And because deep restorative sleep is when immune repair should be happening, poor sleep directly prolongs recovery. The fifth reason is chronic low-grade inflammation. By midlife, many people are walking around with higher baseline inflammation from things like stress, gut health changes, blood sugar spikes, poor sleep, lack of movement, or metabolic strain. That constant background inflammation makes immune cells less efficient. And finally, there's real life, right? Most of us don't truly rest when we're sick. As soon as the fever drops, we're back to work, back on our feet, caregiving, cooking, managing households. We push because we feel like we have to. So even though the body does fight the virus, it's doing so under constant strain. And that's why recovery takes longer. Let's talk about what actually helps. The good news is that these strategies that I'm about to share with you are very practical, very simple, and honestly pretty common sense. What most people are missing is why these strategies matter, especially in a midlife body. I'm going to walk you through 6 strategies that support faster, more complete recovery. Strategy number 1 is actually a 2-part strategy that supports the nose and throat, where viruses arrive, where they live, and where they multiply first. One of the simplest ways to support recovery is using saline solution in your nostrils and gargling with salt water. A lot of people think this is just about soothing congestion or a sore throat or removing mucus. And while that's a nice bonus, that's not the main reason saline solution helps. Saline helps physically flush out viral particles and reduce viral load. It doesn't kill the virus, but it makes the environment much less friendly for it to multiply, which can shorten how long the illness lasts. There are lots of saline sprays and gadgets on the market. There's the neti pot as well. I personally prefer to just simply mix half a teaspoon of salt into a cup of warm water. And then I inhale it from my palm, exhale it back into the sink, and then use the rest of the water to gargle the throat. Super simple. A little side note, if you are very congested, I usually do not recommend using the neti pot because it can sometimes push congestion further into the sinuses or onward toward ear canals. So instead, a gentle rinse or spray is often much better when things are very congested. So the second part of this strategy is something people often miss. Saline can be drying, especially if you're using it more than once a day. And dry, irritated tissue inside your nostrils is more vulnerable and also less effective as a barrier. So after rinsing, I like to add a tiny bit of oil, literally from your palm on your pinky, swipe it just inside the nostrils. Olive oil or coconut oil work just fine. You probably already have them in your kitchen. So this is just gentle support for that line of your immune defense to moisturize the nostrils with oil after you've used saline solution. Strategy number 2 is about supporting your immune system from within. It includes a short-term food adjustment that can support recovery. During an active cold or flu, it helps to temporarily reduce sugar and dairy. Sugar can increase inflammation and make immune cells less effective when you're sick. Dairy doesn't bother everyone, but for many people, it can thicken mucus. And it takes more energy to digest, which will pull resources away from recovery. Instead, think about adding warm, very simple foods that are easy to digest and that can support your healing. This isn't about restriction, it's really about reducing that extra inflammatory stress on the body while it's trying to heal. And so at this point, people often ask me, okay, if we're temporarily reducing things like sugar and dairy, should we be adding anything specific to support recovery? The answer is yes. There are foods, herbs, supplements that can be really helpful. I didn't want to overwhelm this video with a long list at this stage, but I put together a comprehensive immune supportive guide with my go-to supplements and remedies. And you can simply download that in the PDF that's linked in the description and in the first comment below. Okay, back to our strategies. The next 2 strategies are ones you've definitely heard about before. Your doctor has probably told you this many times, but most people were never told why these strategies matter so much, especially in midlife. And once you understand that, they kind of stop feeling optional and start feeling essential and become some of the most powerful tools for recovery. We're talking about the third strategy, which is hydration. And this one matters more than people realize. Hydration matters for 2 reasons. One has to do with your lymphatic system. Lymphatic system is one of your main immune highways. It helps move immune cells around the body to help fight the virus and then clear out inflammatory and viral debris after the virus cells have been killed off. When you're dehydrated, lymph gets sluggish and recovery slows down. Hydration also matters for getting rid of mucus. Flu creates a lot of it in the chest, sinuses, and throat. Fluids help thin mucus so you can cough it out instead of it lingering and turning into things like bronchitis or pneumonia. So while you're sick, sip fluids consistently throughout the day. Water, herbal teas, broth, it all counts. Aim for about 8 cups total daily. Coffee, alcohol, and sodas are not helpful at this time because they actually dehydrate the body and stress an already stressed system. Strategy number 4 is rest. And I know you've heard about it before, and it's super simple, but it's seriously underrated. I'll be honest, this one is challenging for me too. I'm a doer, and lying around feels unproductive and guilt-inducing. My husband, he can rest like a champ, but I feel like I have to push through and be productive and take care of everyone. If you can relate, you're not alone. Maybe you can tell me in comments if you can relate to this. Here's the thing. Fighting a virus, as we said, takes a huge amount of energy. If you're back on your feet too quickly, you're pulling that energy away from immune repair. That's how people end up sick for weeks instead of days. This is how people end up with complications or recurring colds all winter season. And I'm saying this as much to myself as to you. Being down with a flu or a bad cold is not the time to be impressive or productive. 1 or 2 extra days of real rest and away from work now can save you weeks of unproductive, dragging recovery later. So think of this as the most productive thing you can do to get on your feet faster and to avoid having to take more days off later if you don't fully recover or get another cold right after. Strategy number 5 is gentle movement. And I know this may sound confusing because I was just talking about rest. This is not about workouts, not about running or pushing yourself, not about keeping up your normal routine. This is about gentle, intentional movement to support your lymph flow. Your lymphatic system, unlike your cardiovascular system, doesn't have a pump, right? The heart helps our blood move through the body. The lymph fully depends on movement to circulate. Lymph nodes are clustered around kind of the creases of the body, the neck, the armpits, the groin, behind the knees. So simple movements can help lymph drain and reduce that heavy inflamed feeling. Things like gentle neck rolls or shoulder shrugs or shoulder circles, or when you're lying down, bringing the knees toward the belly. So just a few minutes of these specific movements a couple times a day, especially once the fever is gone, can make a real noticeable difference. And finally, strategy number 6 that ties everything together. It's about calming the stress response. And as we talked about earlier, cortisol tends to stay elevated longer in midlife. And when the body stays in that stress state, immune recovery slows down. And so one simple but powerful way to calm the stress response is getting off your phone. And yes, you might be on your phone right now watching this video. That's fine. I get it. But I just wanted to remind you that scrolling the news, social media, or even checking emails keeps the nervous system in an elevated stress state. So real rest that I was talking about earlier isn't just about lying down. It's about giving your nervous system a break too. Another very effective way to calm the stress response is through breathing exercises or breath work. It doesn't need to be complicated, just a few slow, deep breaths intentionally, maybe longer exhales than inhales. Even 2 to 3 minutes of breath work, just a few times a day, can really help. And it's easy to do while you're lying down and resting. Breath work will send a signal to the nervous system that it's safe, and it'll shift out of stress mode and into repair mode. And that makes everything else you're doing work better. And again, if you're interested in supplements or herbal support, I put together a simple PDF with those supportive supplements and herbs and recipes that I personally reach for. And you can go ahead and download that simple PDF through a link in the description and also in the first comment. And remember, especially in midlife, recovery from flu or a bad cold isn't about doing more or pushing harder. It's about supporting your body so that it can help you get back on your feet faster and feel more like yourself again, so that you can go and take care of everything and everyone. And I also recommend that you watch this video next, where I break down 4 root causes of chronic inflammation in midlife, how it contributes to things like weight gain, brain fog, low energy, and how to start reversing it. And if you want ongoing support around feeling your healthiest, especially in midlife, you're very welcome to subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.